That simply means peace, my family. Because all of us are family. Welcome to question and answer class for the United Nubian Nation. I'm a student teacher. My name is Pt.1, student teacher of the master of the heavens and earth, Wu-Sabat. He's been teaching for over 50 years, answering questions that no one else could answer on the planet. And he's written well into or over 500 books. You can name a subject, he wrote a book on it. And I'm blessed to be here, see good brothers and sisters amongst me, you know. And we're gonna do our best to answer all the questions we can that you have to ask. And let's start out with the first question. Anybody? I mean, anything, don't be shy. Any question is a good question.
I got a question. I've noticed the double ankh. You explain the science behind that from the double ankh as far as the single ankh. What's the meaning behind it, purpose, when and where and how of that particular
Well, I can tell you this much. Like you said, one is the single ankh and one is the double ankh. And when the master builds with us on that and explains to us what that ankh means, then we will definitely, I'll be glad, as well as my brothers here, will be glad to explain that to you. As of yet, I really don't know. I know it's called the double resurrection ankh. But as far as a complete build, right now, is not the best time because I don't want to give you part of anything. I'd rather give you the whole thing. Follow? That's a good question, though. Anybody else?
Well, that prompts another question. Why did we start using it without knowing what it is?
When we first got Wu-nuwaupu, we didn't know what it was. In fact, we still don't know the real meaning behind Wu-nuwaupu, because once the master teacher tells us the meaning of what Wu-nuwaupu means, then he's telling them. You follow what I'm saying? It's not so much as we just saying, well, we're going to go out on a limb. You're talking about somebody who's countless years, day after day, always taught us everything, and right and exact, you could look it up, you could find it. So when it came to those things which we couldn't look up, we couldn't find, we had enough trust. Now, I'm not asking you to do that. But for those of us that have been students of the master for that long, it's almost as like you have a person that is telling you something that is going to happen, like your grandmother may tell you something that's going to happen. And every time she tells you what's going to happen, it happens. So that one time when she tells you something strange, don't go by the church today. And you say, well, Grandma, why? And before you can get that why out, she said, I'm telling you, don't go. And then she walk in her room and you stuck, but you trust her because she's been so accurate for so long, and then you don't go and the church gets struck by lightning that day. You follow what I'm saying?
I see the progression of your thought pattern. I'm kind of led to think, and I don't want to debate you on it. I'm just remembering how listening and watching DVDs and listening to tapes, whatever, about was saying, you can question everything and not to just have faith, like, drone Christians, you know what I mean? So for you to say, well, for me to just trust you on this, you know what I mean? So
can I ask you a question? You mind if I ask you a question?
Yeah, sure.
Do you drive a car? What kind of car do you drive?
A Mazda.
Do you trust the brakes?
Now I do.
Now you do. You mean you just got the brakes fixed?
Well, yeah.
Right. Did you trust them before you got them fixed?
Not because, the only reason was because I heard it squeaking.
Right. Did you trust them?
For only so much.
Right, but did you still drive?
Yeah.
So you'll put your trust in a Mazda who you don't even know who made the Mazda, But you won't put your trust in a master who's been teaching for over 50 years and has always been right? You follow what I'm saying?
It's not that I doubt him, though. It's not like that. It's just the fact that that it's just something all of a sudden. So did he just start using that, just like Granny said, don't go to church? Was it like that? Was the situation like that?
As far as what? What do you? I'm misunderstanding where you're coming from.
The way the presentation of the new ankh. Did he say start using this now?
Mm-hmm.
He did.
I'm gonna put it to you like this. That new ankh is. Excuse me for 1 second.
Okay.
The question will be answered.
Oh, it will.
Yeah. Anybody else?
What's the symbolism with the being crucified, being hanging on his charm?
That's the living Messiah. That is a symbol. Well, it's a very interesting story that goes along with that, because you know about the raid that took place on Tamaray. The crown fell off, and another brother can get into it a little bit deeper than me, but I know the crown fell off more than once, and the master said that was later on, that was a symbol that there will be no bloodshed on Tamaray. But I know that is a symbol of our living and our transformation. Mm-hmm.
There's I know one of the brothers telling me that there are some information already embedded in our DNA.
Mm-hmm.
So I was traveling. I was just, I don't know how you would explain it, but I was just thinking, and all of a sudden I guess most of us already came up with it. But anyway, what I'm saying is there's the sun, right? And on the other side of the sun, some told me that on the other side of the sun, I was thinking about the black hole, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I learned that the black hole sucks in light. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
So I was thinking, so if it sucks in light, there must be another direction where it pours out light, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if it pours out light on the other direction, then could it be that on the other side that is pouring out light, that's where the sun is? That's the sun.
Well, a sun, you talk about, when you say the sun, it's almost as if you're saying there's only one sun. There are many different suns. So when you say that, remember that light is temporary. And when it burns out, it becomes a vacuum. You follow? This is like when a star collapses on itself and creates the phenomenon known as the black hole.
Oh, it's sucking up energy, right?
Right. And light and matter.
Right, so
That could actually be one version of a hell, caught in between a light and being sucked through a black hole. You follow?
Exactly. My point is, right? So if the light is being pulled this way and going out in one or many directions, however, where's the energy? What I mean is, where is the middle section that you was talking about? There has to be a section right there, or I don't know if that has to be.
Let me try to help you as much as I could. See, the problem comes in when we're being taught on such a mundane level by beings that are not as old as us, and they're trying to tell us our sciences, and we come here asking questions based on a European way of learning, a style of learning, and then we're trying to ask African questions based on a European style of learning, and they don't really know anything. They profess to know, which is why when you go to their universities, but you learn nothing about the universe there, but you go to their universities, you don't really hear anyone teaching, but you hear a lot of people professing to know. You follow?
Right. So what I'm saying is that the light part being sucked in by the black hole I got from them.
Right.
But the other side, the sun being, the black hole being on the other side of the sun came directly from the DNA.
Okay.
So what I'm saying is, what is it in between? Is there, did Doc say anything about where's
It's a portal from one place to another.
the vortex?
Tell her. The physical realm of light on one end of the spectrum of reality is the black hole. And at the other end is light at the speed of 182,272 feet per second. You follow what it's saying? It's saying the physical realm of light on one end of the spectrum of reality is a black hole. But on the other end is light. So while you're looking at a star that's so many light years away from you, it is actually already burnt out. But you still see it as light.
Because it's just now getting to me, right?
Right. Because it's taken so much, and I use the word loosely, time to get here, because time really, there is really no time span. In reality, time is an illusory thing. You ever try to hold on to a minute? You're like, man, if I could just hold on to this second in time and just savor this moment. I love you so much. I just wanna hold your hand and savor this moment. But you can't hold on to it because time is fleeting. You follow?
Right, but time traveling over, light is time, right?
Would it? No.
Light years, what's that?
Light years is the distance it takes light to travel in the distance that light travels in 1 year. But the funny part about it is, how do you calculate a year? You calculate a year by what?
By the light.
No, by the rotation of an orb, such as the planet Earth, rotating around the sun. And in the Earth rotating around the sun, that is your calculation of a year.
Well, could it be a combination between the light coming from the sun and the rotation?
Well, everything is a combination. You follow what I'm saying? Because when you start dealing with any type of science, you have to realize that everything is dependent on something to an extent. The sun, for instance, is hydrogen and helium, continuously burning, having a chemical reaction. You follow? And that is dependent on the spark, which is the fire. And the fire is holding the orbs in place as the magnetism, the heat, the energy is the magnetism. You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So everything is codependent on something else.
Oh, I don't go. You still
In line with your question, so are you saying from what you read that stars or suns that we see on this side of things, on the other side is a black hole? Like what we see as a black hole here, when you go through that black hole and on the other side, other beings, they may be perceiving that as the sun?
I can only go as far as I know, and I'll tell you, that's what Pt.1 Yanun said. On one side it appears as a black hole, so yes, on the other side it appears as light. But what we're looking at as light on the other side is a black hole. Because light, remember, light is really an illusion. Because, for instance, we think the sun gives off heat, right? How many people think you go outside and think the sun is giving off heat? But the sun's really not giving off heat. Otherwise, it wouldn't be ice cold in space. Because if you're right now in the orbit of Earth, and you take one of them little funny looking ships, and you go out there and you fly out and you do NASA, get out there, and you're in between Earth and the sun, it's cold. So how is it that it's 90 degrees here on Earth, but it's cold in space? It's because the sun's not giving off heat. That is the magnifying of the energy of the different spheres. You have 7 different spheres, and the 7 different spheres are magnifying this energy which we see as light, which we all know is an illusion. You know what I'm saying? It's a manifestation of energy that appears like light, that looks like light to us. And it magnifies and becomes heat, and it feels warm, and it's warm to us. But in space, it's ice cold.
Well, I just want to know what that was that you guys.
This is Pa-Gutut, the Stargate, and actually, it's actually a couple different sections in here that's actually dealing with black holes. There's one particular section, in fact, verse 73, it actually says, "So the light stars may run until they collapse in our lap or our daughter, the black hole, where there is no time and space." So within a black hole, there is no time and space. You follow what I'm saying? Because it's outside of our concept of reality. Our concept of reality, everything we deal with is light. Because most people, when they're in a dark room, what do? You're in a dark room, you turn on the light. That's the first instinct. You know what I'm saying? But light birthed the chaos. That goes back to us. You know what I'm saying? As a people, because it relates to us. Because they're always constantly trying to make us seem like we're lower than somebody. That's when you gotta punch them and hit them where it hurts. And say, well, the darkness has always been here. The light is actually temporary. The light, you can turn the light out. Can you turn the dark out?
No.
Right. That's because darkness is eternal. Darkness is not the opposite of light. It seems like that, but it's not, because you can turn off light and you can't turn off darkness. You can see the light in the dark, but can you see the dark in the light? No. But that's not darkness. A shadow is just less light. Because if you can see the shadow, that means the shadow is in what? Light.
Good.
You follow? Good.
I noticed that when I'm building with a lot of people, now, and we go back on our childhood, many of us, for some reason, have had that situation where we use the magnifying glass underneath the sun.
Right.
Underneath the sun. Many of us have experienced that almost like everybody that I talk to have some reason experienced that. And I know that there is no such thing as coincidence, right?
Well, no, because that would be what? What would you call, if something happens twice, it'd be co. You follow? So what would you call if it happened the third time? A tri-incidence? And then if a fourth time, a quad-incidence?
Right.
You follow?
So in knowing that, I'm wondering, and almost as a child, most of us had that experience. Why was that significant for all of us?
Well, you know what? A good example is given in a book called The Mind that was written by the master, Pt.1. And in the Mind book, he talked about concentration and focus. And he used the example that what you're talking about of the magnifying glass magnifying the sun's energy into hot enough to burn objects. And he also said, if you dam a river and you let the water flow through that one point, it becomes more forceful than it would have been if it was just a leisurely flow of a river. You follow what I'm saying? So that's a great example in focus, because many of us really lack focus. And that's why it's so hard for us to visualize the things that we want in our life, because we don't really have the focus to do that. We say we focused, but we really don't know what concentration is and don't really know how to focus. So we sit, and a lot of times our mind dissipates, much like the sun, until you put it under that magnifying glass, and then it's a fine-tuned fire. You can create fire with it. You follow? Continue.
So I'm saying this to because I'm trying to figure something out, right? So and then I remember Doc said that the word soul coming from the Latin soul, which means sun.
Right,
so,
correct.
And then solar plexus, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
So we all have suns then. So we are suns then. We are.
Well, are you?
Yeah.
Right. You feel that fire?
Yeah.
Right.
Especially when I don't eat. So what I'm saying is that
Right? A lot of us felt that fire before, right? That's a different kind of fire. Might get somebody burnt.
right. But what I've noticed that when I don't eat, that sun becomes more brighter.
Right.
Right. And then now my focus
Mm-hmm.
and my concentration
Mm-hmm.
becomes more acute.
That's right.
And then whatever plan or DNA or information
Mm-hmm.
that they have for me or want me to do becomes more that desire to bring that reality to the physical becomes more
Mm-hmm.
than anything else. You know, than anything that, you know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
More than life itself.
Right. That's the purpose for fasting. The purpose for fasting is to take the time, and you know, it takes 1/4 of it takes 1/4 of the body's energy to digest food. So when you fast, you're letting your body rest from that, and you have more energy. Not only that, if you keep dumping wood on the fire, what happens? The fire goes out. That's what happens when people overeat. I'm sleepy.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? They going out. You know, sleep is the sister to who?
Yeah.
Death. So if sleep is the sister to death, and you know, eating more makes you more tired, then you sleep less. When you eat less and you accomplish more. Right. You follow?
So what I'm saying is this, right? We're sons. So what's the magnifying glass?
Your concentration. That's why I brought that up, because I knew where you were going. I'm trying to tell you, your concentration is the magnifying glass. When you don't know how to concentrate, see, that's why I was taught, take time, take a candle, sit down with the candle, stare at the candle, focus on the flame. Once you learn how to concentrate, you'll get to the door of meditation. You follow?
Okay.
You follow what I'm saying? Anybody else? With that,
Yeah.
pass the class on to my good brother, Atum Hute Emre Atumre. Atumre, excuse me.
I'll tap this on. Any other questions? Go ahead.
Okay. I noticed that, right, and once again, since there's no such thing as coincidence, right,
Mm-hmm.
that even though, I know there's many reasons for why an incident happened, you know, or an illusion, why it looks like it happened. But like, I was locked up,
Mm-hmm.
right, and I noticed that I see more brothers coming out or inside talking about the information.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's not, and then now they're coming out. They coming out of jail and they talking about. Was there a significant reason for that other than the negative that we see? Is
Yeah. As taught by our master teacher, Pablo Baganoon, is that you had golden children, right? And these golden children was the ones that came at the 1970s. And it ended in 2003. These were special beings that were sent here to help us. You feel me? The Caucasian call them prodigies or child prodigies, right? What happened to these golden children are one of the components of us getting off this planet. So when the Europeans saw that these children wasn't taking no crap, they was more aggressive, you know what I'm saying? They was more smarter than a lot of people that's born before 1970 as a child. They picked up a lot of stuff quick. Even when they deal with technology, now, you know, at one time we were nerds. And people who were nerds got picked on, right? But you look at the children from the 70s and up, these children do things that you call nerdish, but they still have a thug mentality because the Caucasian brought in hip hop, right? No, we created hip hop, but what happened is that Russell Simmons opened the door for them.
to destroy it.
You know what I'm saying? The buy, you can invest. Because Russell was like, these guys, he made so much money because of their ignorance. Because they thought, oh, it's a fad, it's going to come and go. So when they realized, okay, these guys are memorizing poetry at such a fast rate that they was calling it freestyle, where you come up to the top of the dome. They said, okay, this is a problem. Because if these guys can do this, Imagine if they get this information and come off the top of the dome and start spitting. You feel me? So what happened is they brought in Eazy-E, Ice Cube, Ice-T, Compton's Most Wanted. You feel me? Ghetto Boys, Pimp C, Underground King, and so on, right? So when they changed the demographic of the music, because you gotta remember that in the late 80s, early 90s, we became conscious again. The reason why I'm in this organization is because I came through the music industry because I was listening to X-Clan, Jazzo, Brand Nubian, KRS-One, you know what I'm saying? Because I'm from the hip-hop era. So when it started getting conscious, you know, listen to Jungle Brothers and a Tribe Called Quest, I wanted to be down because I was like, yo, not only the music is banging, but they're kicking a message. Because you got tired of people talking about, you know, dancing and partying, you want to hear something different. You know what I'm saying? But they made it where you can enjoy the music at the same time. It's not boring. You feel me? So that's what got me into the organization. I came into the music. You know what I'm saying? So when they realized what was happening, they had to bring the negativity into the music. And now these golden children are being influenced by their opposites, which is called the fire children. For every golden child, which is out of the book called The Golden Children, which is Pt.1, a fire child was born also. And these are your black devils. And when I talk about the fire children, we talk about the children of the Luciferians. The golden children are the children of the Nadaru, our ancestors. So now you have the golden children being influenced by the fire children. Because here's the question, and everybody knows this. How can a black person from the ghetto worship the devil? Have anyone met somebody in the hood, I'm not talking about the suburbs, in the hood, that walked around and said, I worship Satan? Why is that? What would happen to him if you said that in the hood?
Grandma.
Huh? What would happen?
No, he gets stomped out.
Would they wouldn't even make fun of him, would they?
Nah,
They would stomp him out. So this is the question. Why is it that all these rappers who so-called came from the hood get a contract, start doing endorsements, and next thing you know they worship the devil? That means something happened. They were already fired children from the beginning. And a lot of them were, you know, and those who didn't want to get down the program, they killed them or they whitewalled them from the industry. You feel me? Because you got to think about this. How can that even manifest? Like this guy's in the hood, he worships Jesus with grandma and them, that goes in the industry, he starts worshiping, and he's worshiping Satan. That's a total extreme. That much money in the world. So that means this, like you can't, people sell their soul, but like you got to think about this guy from the hood is a different type of, he's come from a different cloth. You feel me?
It's already in him.
You know what I'm saying? So it's already in him. This is why when the master teacher came out with the book called Black Devils, this is when the raid happened. His Pop was about to show you who the Black Devils were. But we got so caught up in what happened with the raid, we didn't pick that book up and actually say, okay, why are they attacking Doc? And why is it from the people from within? Because the people that came into this organization was never with us in the first place. Because you gotta remember this. Everybody in Wu-nuwaupu, everybody in Nation of Islam, everybody in the Church of Christ, all these different organizations has fired children in them. If it ain't the children, it's the parents. Because think about this. Like I said a couple weeks ago, how can you impose your will of religion onto an African culture? And say, you're wrong for what you're doing. I said, according to who? Well, according to this Bible. But that's not my book. You feel me? So we're being imposed on by other people's culture. That's why sometimes when we ask questions, there's nothing wrong with asking questions because you're supposed to ask questions. We don't know how to formulate the questions because we're still thinking like them. And sometimes you be like, I'm trying to get it out. You feel me? But sometimes it's hard because we're in the spell of what? English. The worst language on the planet Earth. You feel me? And this is what happens when you see good brothers being locked up. Because you gotta remember this. Like I said a couple weeks ago, they create laws against your nature. You understand what I mean by that? Do anybody understand what I mean by that?
Yeah.
Huh? That means that if you want to enjoy something in your life, they'll actually create a law so you'll break it. And the reason why a lot of brothers are going to prison because they created laws that go against their nature. How are you going to tell me to stop stealing when you stole the land from the Indians, and then you steal me from Africa? Then you say, if I catch you with something stolen, it says step by what?
Faith.
You know what I'm saying? Receiving stolen property. But every day I watch you on the land with your Starbucks and your Walmarts and your Disney World and all that on stolen land. But you're not being brought up for crimes against the Native Americans and American Indians that were here already. You feel me? Then you say, hey, you can't have sex.
Oh, yeah.
You got to be a certain age. So if you had sex with a 13-year-old, they say, oh, that's statutory rape. I said, according to who? Because if you go to Africa, Asia, anywhere outside the planet, outside of Caucasians' mentality, that is the rightful year for a woman. How old does a woman have to be to get pregnant?
13.
So she got cycle.
How old is a woman? Say that again, sister.
She get her cycle.
Exactly. And that's according to what? Nature. But the white man say, oh, you gotta be 18. 666 to have sex with her. And when I say 666, 6 plus 6 plus 6, 18. You feel me? So this is what they tell you, right? But then, well, guess what happens? But if a 13-year-old goes up and shoots a little baby in the head, she's being tried as a what?
Yeah.
But then it's statutory rape when you have sex with her. This is what happened in America. Because at one time, Georgia, you could get married at 13. You still get married in Alabama at 13. But they impose this on us while we're here in America. You got an African who practices a natural nature, but now you're suppressing my natural nature, and this is why we get locked up. You feel what I'm saying? Because when our master teacher first taught us, back in the days, right? You were deaf, dumb, and blind. Right? You didn't know nothing. All you know was that you was born a slave and you was given your freedom. You don't know anything about your great culture outside of America. And everything they taught you in America is dealing with slaves that were working with them. If you look at any research on Frederick Douglass, he sold us out. They tried to get George Washington Carver, but he wouldn't sell out because he didn't want to work for Thomas Edison and them. But anybody who didn't want to work with them, they never put them in Black History Month, or they suppressed them. And the ones that did, they always push them up. Now look at it. Look on the news. Jesse Jackson Jr.'s son is being crucified by the media and the government for spending campaign money on himself. But you don't say nothing about John Kerry and George Bush and Al Gore. You feel me? And all the so-called other Republicans and Democrats who spent all the campaign money, millions, into their companies. But you want to attack Jesse Jackson's son. Because they knew that he was the next person to be president. So they sidetracked him, now we got Barack. You feel me? He was being groomed for the presidency, as I mentioned, he was teaching before. You know what I'm saying? So now, what happened is, you were deaf, dumb, and blind. And our master teacher came here to resurrect what? The mentally what? Dead. That was your first resurrection. You feel me? How to talk, how to walk, how to live African. But what happened is this: the fire children and the so-called spell of Leviathan that our people were under went against that. Because when Pop said, look, I'm gonna start a community, right? And it's gonna be an African culture. Because we're dealing with America, I gotta keep it suppressed because I don't want the devil to know that, okay, they're right there. Put the bows on them. So I'm gonna call it the Nubian Islamic Hebrews. Now people never understand years, why he got all these different titles, all these different names? Because he had to hide it under a banner because the devil was watching. You feel me? But like I said before, the word Nubian deals with what? It deals with what? Exactly. But people always associated with Egypt. Right? Like I said before, why didn't you call it yourself Egyptian Islamic Hebrews? Because Nubian is much older than Egypt. You feel me? And the Nubians never sold out. You feel me? To no Macedonians, no Greeks, no Hebrews, because they couldn't invade Egypt. I mean, they couldn't invade Nubia, because Nubia, the way Nubia was situated, you had to go across a desert to the 4th and 5th cataract just to get to Nubia. By the time you got there, you didn't already have heat stroke, let alone be able to fight the Nubians. You feel me? And they had all the gold, all the wealth. So people came in there, we need some gold. You feel me? Until the Arabs came in Another desert nomadic person came in who could go across the desert, but instead of trying to, they knew they couldn't beat the Nubians, so what they did is they married into their daughters and raided their villages and bred a hybrid Nubian from the north. But they didn't mess with the ones from the south. But now they were trying to wipe them out so they could take over the country. You feel me? Because it's oil underneath the desert of Nubia or Sudan. You feel me? So now we got this culture, we got a community, we have rules and regulations. So what happened is people was attracted to the community, it was attracted to Dr. Malachi York, Cabana York's information. But guess what happened? Ask me what was the biggest problem we had. Ask me. People's mentalities coming into the community and trying to impose their will on Wu-nuwaupu, saying we should do it this way, do it that way. No, we already got a culture. But you're trying to bring in a European state of mind into the community. Where all the children was taken care of by everybody. You hear me? This is your father, but that's your father too, and that's your father, and that's your mother. You know, it was an African mentality. People said, I ain't your real father. That's your father, but I ain't your, you know. And then, you know, the women put this in their heads because they still was in that Alice in Wonderland mentality. And the men were doing the same thing too. You feel me? Because they still had the Caucasian mentality. We've been in America, like I said before, we've been in America far too long. We've been here too long. Can anybody name something black that we do in America that's black? Name one thing. Can somebody name one thing? Can you name one thing?
It's the only thing.
Huh? No, name one in America. I'm gonna talk about this. Outside of this, name something African that people in America do. Huh? It's sad. That means you still practicing a Caucasian culture. I don't care how conscious you are. You can sit and say, oh, I know about the Africans in Egypt and Ramses II, and I can know about the stones and crystals. You know all that, but you still have no culture. You still think like them. Just because you read a book on it doesn't mean that you just memorize it. But you still think like them because you're still practicing a European, American, Caucasian mentality in a British colony called the United States of America. You feel me? So you had to be resurrected the first time. You feel me? He gave you a culture. He gave you a way of life. And he gave you a language. You hear me? But guess what happened though? Guess what the problem was? You were still in the belly of the beast. And you would still be given what you wanted so he could want what you had to give because you didn't want culture. So he had to give you religion. You hear me? You wanted to be Muslims. You wanted to be Jews. You wanted to be Hebrews. You wanted to be Moors. You wanted to be cowboys and Indians. You hear me? You wanted to be Masons. Anything that we converted to, the master teacher gave it to you, right? He said, I'm giving you what you want, right? Since you don't want African culture, I'm going to give you the religion and I'm going to make sure that you're the best Muslim, the best Jew, the best Christian, the best Moor. And every time we went to these different schools, even the people that were supposed to be the so-called masters in schools couldn't touch us. You feel me? But you had to die again and be resurrected for a second time. Because you got to remember, outside of religion, we are still the children of the Natharu, the children of Re, the sun people, the sun children. You hear me? And that's what that second cross on it represents, the second resurrection, the hereafter. Because you got to remember, we just came out of the moon cycle, which is religion. And you got to remember, in the moon cycle, what rules? Huh? Dead, six ether forces. So you could not rule in that era. This is why the Caucasians appear to be powerful the last 6,000 years. Because the universe had to rest. It was so much energy that it built up that the universe had to rest. As our master teacher said in one of the previous updates. And when the universe rests, right, to get a chance to recharge yourself, you're in a stage of death. You hear me? And this is what the moon cycle was about. So we as non-ether beings could not rule during the moon cycle. So we created a being to rule that cycle for us. They were our bodyguards. These were beings that we created thousands of years ago to protect us from alien invasions. Coming here to try to take out the Natharu, because the Natharu are not warriors by nature. So our ancient ancestors created the Caucasian for protection. But the problem with the Caucasian is that once he had a taste of blood, he went to a frenzy. And they conquered the whole planet Earth. And then starts suppressing the children of the Nagaru. You feel me? Which is us. And this is how we came under the first spell. You feel me? So that Pop broke you out of that. And that was the first resurrection. Now you're being pulled out of the age of the moon cycle, which is the age of Pisces, into the age of Aquarius, which is the sun cycle. Now that we're in the hereafter, that is our double resurrection. You feel me? The double resurrection. Listen, this information is not new. Pop always talked about it, but we were so religious-minded we didn't see it. Remember they said that Jesus, okay, let's go religion. Pop said in religion. He said Jesus was born, what, 2,000 years ago. But you know him as Yahshua Bar Miriam, right? And they said he's going to die and come back. But the Jews said that's not the real Jesus, because the Jesus that's coming back is a warrior. So that's why they never accepted Jesus in Judaism, because he was the Jesus they talking about was a punk. No, that's not our Jesus. That dude is soft. We waiting for that warrior dude, the Lion of Judah, not the Lamb of we're not looking for the Lion of God. We're looking for the Lion, not the Lamb. You feel me? So what happened is, if you go to Egypt, Har was born, or Haru, or Horus. And then when he died, they said he shall come back and resurrect as Rehar Aketu. You hear me? The two Hars. He came the first time and he comes back again. This is, in Sumer, they call it Tammuz coming back. In Christianity, they call it Jesus. In Islam, they call it Isa. But in right knowledge, that is Har. You feel me? The son of Asar and Aset. You feel me? So that was this is what it was talking about. We are the manifestation of these beings. You feel me? You are the physical hybrids that were created by them. And when it's time for them to come back, they will incarnate into your body to fight the war for you, because you're not powerful or strong enough to do it yourself. Pops told us this back in 1997 when we asked this question. When would the help come? He said it'll come once you turn yourself inside out. And once you do this, these beings, your ancestors will incarnate in you. You feel me? It said that we got caught up in the spell so bad. And Pop said, yeah, you're supposed to question. Yeah, you're supposed to question. But you gotta remember this. When before Pop was teaching you to question them all, he gave you religion, and you accepted that. So what happens, the only way Pop could break you out of the spell, right, is to say, look, question everybody. Because that's the only way that spell could be broken. Because how bad, you don't understand how bad the spell was. It was damaging. You just accepted everything from blind faith. You feel me? And what happened was, Pop said, I gotta break this spell. What a spell. I had to create a new spell in the form of Islam. A new spell in the form of Judaism and Christianity. But guess what I had to do? I had to throw a little bit of Wu-nuwaupu in there. That's why if you read the old books, it's Christianity, but it's not the same as Christianity. It's a little high, it's even more deeper. Am I right or wrong? Same thing with Islam and Judaism. So Pop had to create that spell to break you out of that spell. So you had to question everybody. To the point that we are at the point now, you can't even question this new doctrine, because this new doctrine is not in formation. It's out of formation, because it's outside of this planet. Like I said before, the Wu-nuwaupu attaches on to anything or any history that's of this planet. If you look on Mercury, the signs of the Wu-nuwaupu will be totally different on Mercury, Mars, Venus, Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto. You hear me? You know why? It's a different environment, different culture, different type of beings. You can't drop a seal in the desert, and you can't put a camel in the North Pole in the water, because it's outside of its natural nature. That means that a Wu-nuwaupu adapts to the nature of the planet and takes it to a higher level. Because if you look at what Wu-nuwaupu is, you cannot define it because it changes. Our doctrine is not absolute. It's dimensional. It changes constantly because the universe changes. It expands. That's what all expanding was about. The universe expands. That means the doctrine expands. Do y'all understand what I mean by that?
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
This is what happened. You know what I'm saying? So now we went to such a higher level, you can't use the Book of the Dead to confirm Wu-nuwaupu no more. You know why? Because Wu-nuwaupu is on such a high level, it's outside the places of person, places, and things. You know what I'm saying? You're still into God, the devil, man, heaven, earth, hell. You feel me? Y'all feel me?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So, because, you know, the master teacher had put out 600 books. Did you know that, right? 600, I got all. You know what I'm saying? And out of those 600 books that he put out, he toppled the world of Islam. He toppled the world of Judaism. He toppled the world of Christianity. The more, it can go on and on. So after he takes the whole rug out of you, guess what happens? You got no choice but to trust him. Because he no other scholar did what he did. People talk about, well, Dr. York got stuff from here. How's that possible? How can you control knowledge? How can you say, I came up with that fact first? That's impossible. Everything is public domain. Everything was on the walls. Everything was on the temples. So a Caucasian or a Puerto Rican or a Jew copied that stuff off the wall. They still copying our stuff. And if we put it in our books as reference, it's still our stuff. Because it ain't come from Lebanon. It ain't come from Rome. And it definitely ain't come from during Israel. It came out of Africa, Egypt, and it came out of Mesopotamia, Sumeria. That's our stuff. That's our bloodline. You just a translator. You feel what I'm saying? And this is why our master teacher always said, learn the language. That way you don't have to go by him. You can actually translate it on your own. Well, you can go to ancient Babylon and ancient Egypt and read the hieroglyphics and translate for yourself. Like, you know what? Pop was right. And I can see where the other stuff is coming from too. They did such a good job. You feel me? So you have no choice but to trust the master teacher because he's taken to such a higher level. And if you don't want to accept that, then you can just stay in religion and keep worshiping rocks and spooks and guys, hippies that only hang out with men and don't hang out with women. You feel me? Any other questions? Yeah, go ahead, brother. Did that get that? Was that good enough for you for the tweet right there?
No.
Oh, you said no?
But we had talked. I don't want to.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, you said we come from the sun, but I was reading like the Zulu said we come from Mars. So did we originate from the sun first?
Both. You got to understand this. When we came into this, when our ancestors came into this solar system, they stopped off of Mars first and created. It was a project going on, which is called the Adama Project. What happened is they couldn't survive on this planet because their body is not conducive to this planet. You ever seen what we call Avatar?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. They had to create a biological being from that planet in order for these people to transfer their consciousness into this other living organism. The same thing happened. This is a higher science. The Egyptians and ancient Natharu or Salaf was dead. They will incarnate into other beings. You know what I'm saying? So they can and be able to eat the foods and stuff like the planet. They couldn't eat the foods here on this planet. They eat the food in their form, it'll kill them. It's like poison to them. So they will have to create a body for this. So the different beings that was here on this planet Earth, they was kidnapping and abducting and taking it back to Mars and experimenting on them. You know what I'm saying? This, you can find a lot of this information in tablets in the Enuma Elish and the Gilgamesh epics and the Atrahasis. These are when they talk about beings coming down and abducting people and working on them in a laboratory called Shemti, which you can find in ancient Babylon. You feel me? Our master teacher was able to go into more detail than other these so-called other translators and scholars dealing with the ancient Sumer and ancient Egyptian texts. You feel me? And we were created from the sun because when they planted the genes here on planet Earth, they had to biologically create another form for themselves. So they planted the seed in the oceans, or they call Nun, you know what I'm saying? Or the oceans, and certain beings started germinating from protozoa to amoeba, and then started evolving to this type of reptile called the Dimetrodon, which evolved, and they said we came out of the water. You heard that, they teach it in school, right? And this Dimetrodon evolved into a proto-mammal, which you call a genus Homo. But if you go online and look up a diagram or picture of genus Homo, guess what genus Homo is? It's a monkey. So when they said Lucy was the oldest person on planet Earth, it's talking about a monkey. Did y'all know that? Everybody, it's a scientific term for monkeys. And then this monkey stood up erect and started walking around on both legs. They call it a Homo erectus. Then the beings came back and sped up the genes of this Homo erectus with their own blood, and this is how they was able to jump millions of years of evolution in such a short distance to a Homo sapien. This is why scientists call this the missing link. In ancient Egypt, when they talk about the beings that came out of the waters, they call them the what? The Ogdogs. Because these Ogdogs were reptilian, aquatic type beings that came out of the waters. You hear me? And when you look on ancient Egypt of these Ogdogs, which is Amun and Amunet and Ket and Kektet, you hear me? There's eight of them. Because the word Ogdog means 8 in Greek. In our language of the ancient Napatan language that they spoke, it was called Kaminu, which means 8. 4 females, 4 males. Right? The females were in the form of a serpent, and the males were in the form of a frog. That's why, what was it? Anybody know the original name of America was called? It was called the land of the frogs, because those Ogdogs came over here from the Bermuda Triangle, because they were living under the waters. Did you know in ancient Mali as the Nomos? Certain beings call them Maldekians. You feel me? A species of reptiles. This is what the Caucasian is scared of. They're scared of the real gods. They say, okay, these guys are descendants of them. And then I'm watching how they're moving. I'm studying them. I put them in certain environments, certain conditions, and these guys attack. This is dangerous to them. Think about this. They kidnap you out of Africa. They put you in such extreme measures, right? You adapted. They put chains and shackles on you, hung you from trees. You adapted. Set you free from slavery.